Bienvenidos to my channel. Yo me llamo Kelly and this is Adventures in Spanish. And in this video, you're going to learn the 4 most common verbs in español. ¿Listo? Vamos! Okay, so there are around 12,000 different verbs in español. Actually, 12,290 to be exact. So how do you even know where to begin when you're learning Spanish and you want to start learning verbs? Well, the best place, of course, is to start with the most common verbs. Okay, so the first verb is the verb ser. And the verb ser is one of the 2 to-be verbs. And it's the one that we use when we're talking about professions, permanent things, where you're from, your nationality, your characteristics, what you look like. It's a really common verb and it's used a lot in español. So it's a really handy one to learn right from the beginning. The second most common verb in español is the second to-be verb, the verb estar. And there's lots of uses for the verb estar. First of all, we use it when we are talking about our temporary state. For example, you'll hear it a lot and you'll use it yourself when you're asked, ¿Cómo estás? Estoy bien, gracias. Yeah, how are you? So we talk about our states, whether we're feeling good. We use it a lot when we're talking about, in reference to locations of things, so where something is. We also use the verb estar in our present continuous or the present progressive tense to talk about something that you are doing, actually doing now. The third most common verb is maybe a verb that you don't necessarily know or come across or recognise in its infinitive form, the verb aber, because you'll see it used and you'll be using it in the third person form a lot to say that there is or there are something. And we say I, Hay. See, so maybe when you're asking, I don't know, for some ice, hay hielo. Is there any ice? Hay hielo. Or you're asking, you want some water, hay agua. Bien. The verb haber is also used in the present perfect tense. So we use it to say that we have just done something. And the present perfect tense, a little like the present progressive, is what we call a compound tense. So you need to know the verb haber to be able to talk about something that you have just done. Bien. The 4th most common verb in español is, of course, the verb tener, which is another verb that means to have. And this one we talk about actually having things. So, for example, we use it when we talk about our age, how many years we have. So I would say, tengo 16 años if I was 16. Ojalá. Tengo 16 años. Bien. We use the verb tener when we're talking about feeling hunger or thirst. The literal translation is, I have hunger, I have thirst. We would say, tengo hambre or tengo sed. See? It's a really, really handy verb. You can also use it to form questions because, of course, if you watched my previous videos, you'd know that the word does or do you doesn't exist in español. And one of the most common questions that we might find ourselves asking is, do you have or have you got? See? So knowing how to conjugate this verb tener, you can ask a question. ¿Tienes? Literally means, do you have or have you got, informally. Bien. So there we go. 4 really common verbs that I recommend you learn straight away. The verb ser and estar, the 2 to-be verbs, and the verbs haber and tener, the 2 to-have verbs. There we go. Have a go at conjugating them. When we say conjugate, we mean writing the verb out, so in each of its subject forms. So with the verb tener, for example, yo tengo, tú tienes, él or ella tiene, usted tiene, nosotros tenemos, vosotros tenéis, ellos and ellas tienen and ustedes tienen. That's what we call conjugating a verb. Great way to practice your verbs is to write them out and conjugate them. And as you go through the different tenses, as you learn, every time you learn a new tense, take those common verbs and conjugate them through the tenses. There we go. A little tip there at the end. Bueno, hasta la próxima. Adiós.